Hello, it's Rumor, and today I wanted to come back with another video response to Lisa Papez, who recently shared a video on her top 10 most intuitive decks. I don't think I can take my cards on quite the same journey as she can, but you know, it's a work in progress. I'm ever trying to develop this, and maybe I will even take her intuitive course too and learn her secrets. But meanwhile, I thought I would share the decks that I consider to be my most intuitive. They help me color outside the lines a bit where the traditional tarot meanings go. They give me a bit more to leap off from, shall we say. So I will get right into it. To start, I'm just going to grab two that are already here at my table. I am not presenting these in any particular order. They are not ranked from 10 to number 1. I am just going about them in pairs, more or less. But to start with the Tildwick Tarot 2nd edition and the Hush Tarot, which I just recently shared in my video for September decks. As I think I already mentioned in that video, with both of these decks, they challenge me with unconventional imagery. The Hush Tarot, sometimes I can see how it carries a Rider-Waite-Smith meaning, but other times it really doesn't at all to me. And so I find myself needing to look at it a while. And when I first got it, I was trying very hard to cram the traditional meanings into it. And so it taught me how to just let go and work with what this image itself is giving me and take that into account with the numerology and the suit of the card rather than being penned in with any sort of standard meaning. And the Tildwick Tarot here, with these empty spaces throughout this house and out in the gardens, you're not seeing a typical scene portrayed as you would in a Rider-Waite-Smith. And the people are more so portrayed through portraits on the walls. Otherwise, it's empty and quiet and giving you room to breathe within it. Take a little walkabout through this house. It's very imaginative. It's very much a deck that you can just see yourself enter into and actually explore. And Hush Tarot presents another world like that too. You can tiptoe into these weeds and bristles, encounter these animal and these people, whether they are actually human, if they are some sort of fae. It's hard to know sometimes, but for both of these, for the sheer fact that I don't look at them and then, bam, instantly see a traditional meaning, you know, I need to look at them and listen more to my inner voice and what my mind's eye is seeing and what my gut might be telling me. So just pushing me outside the boundaries of any conventional imagery is basically what I'm getting at here. For example, you have the King of Pentacles here, and we see this owl standing on a cuckoo clock that has this skull embedded within it. Here we have the 9 of Coins. We've got an empty room filled with trunks here. Just kind of adds to the sense of something decayed and abandoned, like this clock, but with time ticking on as this all remains locked and isolated. So maybe this isn't even time ticking on. This could be just time standing still as it is in this room. And so depending on what you've asked, what it is you're trying to contemplate here, how might there be that sense of time just stopping? Are we stuck in the past? Are there ways that we need to move forward? Are there ways that we seem to feel trapped and we need to make our way out? Can we see what that way out is? So there's just a whole lot that you can explore here. And I think in relation to each other if you were to pair these. It's kind of cool. Have the indoors and the outdoors. And they're both very haunting as well. Wasn't that pretty, fall flowers? So yeah, just see where similar images might catch your eye. Okay, so that is Tildwick, 2nd edition, and the Hush Tarot. Next up is one I am taking directly from my little ritual bag. I've done a video on this before as to everything that I've got tucked inside here. Not going to go through it all now because I have a whole video on it, but I will do. Let's dig out the tarot deck that I keep in here. The Raven's Prophecy, my trimmed version. I did also buy another copy with the orange borders as well, because I really don't mind the orange borders, but I was curious how this deck would look without them and just freeing the images of that constraint. But starting with this first card, this was the moment I knew this was going to be a very intuitive deck for me, because before I had trimmed this, the very first time I laid it out, I did a deck interview spread with it, and I received this card. It came up as the one in the center closest to me, and it was reversed. That was in the position of how I can best work with the deck, and having this orientation like this in its reversed form, I just saw this voice, this presence from the ether reaching out to me from the deck, because after I had laid out all the cards, I just put the deck face down at the very center of the sort of circle that I had created. So it was as if the deck itself were reaching out to take me by the hand and telling me, don't be afraid, just meet me halfway here, be receptive to what I have to say. I also had a wild experience with just first unpacking it from the box, and the Queen of Wands shot directly out. And I'm saying it wasn't a typical flyer like, oh, it just kind of fell in my lap. It, boom, straight out like a bullet, practically across the room. And I couldn't tell you how that happened. I don't find these cards to be that slippery. This card stock, I noted, is a little bit different than the second copy that I had purchased. And I would say that this one is even less glossy and slippery than that one. But let's see, where is she? There we go. Little spitfire we got here. So the way that that happened, the way that that was my introduction to this deck, this just embodies it all for me. I feel like this is the spirit of this deck. She's the Queen of Wands. She's fiery. She is passionate. And as the other card had demonstrated, though, very willing to work with me. So right away, as a new tarot learner, to have that experience with this deck that really like pushed me more into the realm of the intuitive. As I was saying with the others, and you know what, I am going to continue holding this because there's going to be a glare. I'll try to avoid it. I just won't hold these straight on if that's okay. But once again, it's simply this unconventional imagery. It just goes its own way. It uses symbolism from the Raven Boys book series that Maggie Stipe wrote, who is also the creator of this deck. So if you are a fan of that series, it's even better having something like this that coincides with it. But even if you haven't read it, you don't need to know the books to work with this deck. Knowing them can add enhanced meaning to an extent, sure, but I haven't even read the whole series. I've read half of it so far, but I still very much take these cards as their own thing. And I just look at the images and I don't try to imprint onto it what I've read in the stories. I just try to see in it what I see, and not just see, but what I feel. Again, it is one that just opens me more into my gut than my brain. I don't try to get too intellectual with it. There's just something very natural and almost primal about it. And the simplicity of the imagery, as simple as it seems, it's astounding how much it opens up to interpretation. And especially when you get these laid out in a spread with each other, which is so nice now with this little small size. But you can really start to see the story. You can see this as the same character. And all of a sudden, while we just had the single hand here, and now we have it, it's being grabbed. Is this someone else, or is it the same person confining themselves? And if I look, I imprinted on here very subtly, just with a ballpoint pen, nothing fancy. This is 8 of air, so 8 of swords. So I would see that and realize this is this person's own hand here holding him or her back. If I didn't look at that, though, I could open up to speculation and open up to a broader story that maybe it is someone else. Depends on just how intuitive I want to get with it. And here we see these plants. We got a 5 of water, 5 of cups here with the ravens. This is Ace of earth. And this is Wheel of Fortune, cycling through the seasons. But again, I don't even have to look at that if I just wanted to get a sense, like, how is this hitting me? These birds sitting in what appear to be a dying tree. We've got this new growth here, but then we have this reminder here of how everything has its season. So what buds and flourishes and blossoms does eventually come around and decay and fall away, and life moves on. And that's how it can work with our grief, doesn't it? We have our seasons with it. And it does not seem to be something that ever really goes away, but it is indeed a cycle. And you're going to have your ups and your downs with it, but there's always going to be some sort of new growth moving along with that. So say a few more out because they're pretty. And I'm sorry if there is just such a glare here, but yeah. I love this deck. This is one of my absolute favorites. I especially love my little trimmed copy, but I think I'm going to bring out the one with the orange borders for October, because even though it's not a Halloween deck, with that orange, it does feel like it. But yeah, this is just gorgeous, incredibly meaningful to me, and I would love it forever. Next up, I've got another pairing here. The Rosebud Tarot and the Lioness Oracle Tarot. I've paired these together because these are 2 collage decks. So there's so much the eye can fall upon in images like this. The layers. You can absolutely go about it the standard way with the keywords that automatically come to you when you see those titles. But you can also just choose to, before looking at that, and that's usually what I'll do. I mean, there are certain decks where I just want to be challenged by the images, and others where I certainly do want to take into account what the title is. But especially if it's an intuitive deck like this, I try to not pay so much attention to that as the image first, and just get an idea of what is striking me instantly. When I look at this, what am I seeing first? And am I seeing this rose? Am I seeing this mansion, castle? Am I seeing this pregnant belly? This rug? What do I see first? And does that have meaning for me? Am I noticing maybe these cliffs in the distance and the water? Am I escaping into that? And then here we've got this man standing on a boat. And when I look at these pictures in conjunction with each other, I'm seeing this makes me notice the water more. But yeah, I'll try to avoid getting too repetitive, but the idea is simply that you have a feast for the eyes here. You have a lot of little images that your eyes can land on and that can take your imagination and your intuition away with it. And there's so much you can draw from them before even casting a glance at the title. But then that can come into play, of course, after you've let yourself have your intuitive thoughts, and then you look at what the actual meaning is, and does that seem to coincide with what you understand about that card? And if it doesn't, is there a way to reframe what you intuitively saw within that, or the other way around? Does your intuitive pull help influence how you now see that tarot card and other decks? It might add an extra layer of meaning that you'll consider even when you're not using these particular decks. These two are great together. I mean, you have a proliferation of roses that appear in both, but then you can also get this cosmic, oh, here we go. Get some cosmic backgrounds to it. But they're both still so different from each other. They definitely bring their own viewpoint. Go through a few more. Beautiful. I love these so much. So the Rosebud Tarot, the Lioness Oracle Tarot. So to bring in two more, 6 and 7 intuitive decks. These are my Marielle and my Margaret Peterson. This is well, they're both technically trimmed. I trimmed the silver gilding off this, just the gilding though, to edge it. And then the Margaret Peterson, I trimmed the side and top and actually bottom borders. There was a white border running around the backs, and so I made sure all that was off. But I left enough of this bottom border so that I could still see the titles here. They just feel like more of a manageable size, and I really could not handle that white border on the back. More than anything, I think I just wanted that white border off. So I am really happy with how it turned out. It just really opens up these images in a new way. Sorry, getting a glare from my skylight here. Oh no. Oh, this glare is not good. Okay, I'll have to tip these up, I guess. I don't have too much to say about it other than these are two more decks that challenge my typical tarot interpretations. So these are increasingly abstract from the decks that I've shared before. These are the even heavier hitters for me when I'm really trying to tap into an intuitive space and feel more in flow. These are inviting you to form your own thoughts, Find your own answers. Don't look to someone else and let them tell you what to think. What do you think? Especially with how abstract this is, it's like an ink blot test. And I learn a lot about myself as far as how I'm seeing or what I'm seeing in this art. So yeah, Margaret and Mary. Great go-tos when I want to do those big questions. I want to get spiritual. I want to lift out of my mundane life and really tap into my higher self. These are 2 automatic go-tos. But here in this shimmery bag resides my Shimmering Veil Tarot and the Book of the Dead Oracle. So as I'm venturing further into the abstract here, I have to include these 2 by Scylla Conway. You might find some recognizable figures, but it's very ethereal in general. This very airy, watery artwork style does provide you with a lot of imagery that's blurred around the edges, and you need to really look into it to see what you see. And of course, this is a tarot deck, and it has its numbers and elements accordingly. And this is an oracle deck that it's numbered and has its keywords, but they're so subtle in the corner. It is very, very easy to ignore those and just go off the picture. So these are decks that I also go to with the big questions. These are, I'd say, almost purely spiritual for me. I've used them for dream work as well. So certainly for tapping into my unconscious mind, but also for that higher consciousness. And I also use these recently for Dawn Michelle's monthly medicine. If you have a Weaver membership at her Boho Tarot channel, every month she provides guidance on monthly medicine following a theme, and you do readings all month focused on that same intention. And a couple of months ago, the focus was communicating with guides, and I chose these decks for that work. The way it kicked off, because I did not deliberately choose for myself who or what to work with, I just sort of left it open to the cards. And I actually have a strong sense that what I might have been communicating with throughout that month was my higher self. My soul, that part of me that's divine and remembers who I am. While mundane mortal little me is like, duh. I know nothing. But these are breathtaking, and you really got to be in a certain mood to go with it. They're peaceful and calming, but images like that can also be a bit confronting. And once again, we just have this abstract quality that opens it up to your individual interpretation. You create the meaning here. There are guidebooks you can follow, sure. There's always that to fall back on. But ultimately, again, what do you think? What do you see? What does that mean to you? So all of these decks just have that potential to become so deeply personal. I guess all decks can. I mean, even if you take a straight up old school Rider-Waite-Smith, I mean, we're all taking something different away from that. There's a lot of symbolism in there too that can catch our eye, and we might look at different parts of it every reading that we do, every time that it shows up. So I guess I can't say it's like something that's limited to these. I just know for me and the way that my brain works, I need to break outside those conventional boundaries. I need to have, it's too easy for me to snap into default mode with something that is more traditional. So I just need something that gets a little bit looser so that I'm kind of maybe thrown even initially and not sure what to think. And so really compelled then to just sit and give it time and try to clear my mind and really look and really listen to my inner self. So then finally, my Dawn Michelle special here, returning once again. These are the soul cards 1 and 2 that I purchased from Dawn Michelle after she rehomed them. I'm so grateful to her for these. Really, really loved them. Leaving this one for last, even though I said these were in no particular order, but I did specifically leave these for last because as I'm speaking of the abstract and how you can just ignore titles to just get into the artwork and see what your intuition is telling you from that. There's no other deck that does that as powerfully as the soul cards because there is no title. And these are so glossy, so I'm going to do my best to get them to show up. But yeah, these are purely artwork. I have no guidebook that I can run to. I have to sit and work with the card and generate my own meaning. And I've mentioned before, I have used these for, initially I pulled them out for rune study as I was trying to get to know the essence of each rune. I've subsequently used them to have soul conversations. They are soul cards after all. But I have had some really heavy but extraordinary readings. There's something so primal about these. They feel soulful, but there's something grittier and earthier to them than Scylla's artwork in the Shimmering Veil and the Book of the Dead Oracle. That just feels maybe somewhat less ethereal, but like more ancestral maybe. I feel lineage through these cards. I can see why Lisa uses them for past life readings. Another sort of lineage of your own soul's path. beyond just who you've descended from through the generations. It's a way to see how you've moved through lives if you wanted to use it for that. So there's something a little bit more grounded to it, but certainly still cosmics, definitely of another realm. This is a peek behind the veil also, just in a very different way than the other decks. And so that's where sometimes I've wondered, oh no, do I have too many that I have for essentially similar things? Is there just overlap there? But I have different conversations with each of these decks. They bring something different to that. So I might ask them all the same type of question. I might use them all for the same type of work, but it'd be, just to get another voice. Like, hey, can I get a second opinion on that? or can you clarify it in the way that only you can do? So while I don't want to have too many decks like this, I wouldn't want to have a huge amount of these abstract intuitive decks and just really bond and work with what I've got. I don't feel that I have redundancies in what I've shown today. There is something very different. It's very difficult for me to articulate. All I know is that the way I respond to each one is distinct. So I like having the variety to know, especially when I'm wanting to sit with such a large question and I'm in a particular zone. That's a sensitive space to be in. And so it's nice to have the choice of okay, well, where my sensitivities and my sensibilities are at right now. What's feeling right? What is my soul calling for? What's the best way I can communicate with that higher self? What's going to be the language we can speak most clearly today? And another day, it might be different. But more than anything, this is my top intuitive deck, again, because I can't fall back on any possible interpretation. This is just what I make of it. And I need that so badly. I am very much still so caught in my head. For as much work as I do with all of these decks, I struggle on a daily basis getting to that intuitive place. I'm very head heavy and I'm trying to get more in tune with my intuition, with myself. Okay. I'll end on that note then. Thank you so much. If you have sat through all of that, those are my top 10 intuitive decks for when I need to get out of me noggin. Thank you so much for watching. Please let me know in the comments what decks are your go-tos for this type of work and what experiences you may have had with any of the specific decks that I've shown. If some were a miss, where others were hits, tell me all about it, darlings. Okay? Bye!